I've really been busy for the last few months. I went from posting about a video per week to now only just have posted the windbag video about 3 months of going AWOL. So what gives? Well, it's a mix of deciding where I've been wanting to take this channel and also the Gibdo project. What the hell is the Gibdo project? Well, somewhere in the beginning of my channel I created a video where I sampled lighting from a certain scene in Majora's Mask and stuck it into Ocarina of Time. It was a great and eerie experiment which resulted in my most viewed video of all time. I explained that as a kid, I used to have nightmares where I'd be playing Ocarina of Time and then Gibdos would come out of nowhere and attack. After the video was uploaded, I received a downpour of comments from people that thought not only was this idea interesting, but they inquired on actually making it happen. So here's what I've been working on for a while. It's the very first look at the idea I call the Gibdo project. So what I'm actually going to show you here is a concept idea depicting how I want a certain scene to go. That scene being the moment you first meet a Gibdo. Here's where a lot of problems admit into my idea. First off, I'm using Blender game engine. Yes, Blender instead of Unity. Why? Well, when I was 14, I played around with Blender a lot and used to make my own games with it, in hopes that I could actually get one published. I'm familiar with Blender, and it hasn't been till now where I'm getting back into these tricks in Blender game design that I'm actually figuring out a lot of capabilities that Blender has. Being how I'm going for a Nintendo 64 style, I think I can make an okay looking game in Blender and still keep my limits to keeping the game running smoothly. Second question. Why not make a mod for Ocarina of Time? I'm not very quaint with mod tools for Ocarina of Time, and the game I'm visioning has different mechanics, but a similar layout. The events in this game happen well after Majora's Mask, so I'm trying to create this feeling like you've been to this area before, but this thing feels a little different because a lot of time has passed. I want to capture a survival horror element like the Resident Evil games, but keep it in the style of the Zelda universe. Lastly, the character you'll play as in the game is not Link, but a Kakarikian native that witnesses the Gibdo outbreak as a child and grows up in a now destructive and much more altered version of the world he saw as a kid. As of right now, I've considered making his prime weapon a crossbow, but with limited ammo. The arrows will knock the Gibdos out temporarily, but with limited arrows and a town full of Gibdos, you must plan your strategies out well. Shields will be used to keep your character from looking at the Gibdos, and as common defense. Instead of being near the Gibdos to scream and paralyze you, you have to also be looking directly at them. The first few levels of this game will actually be you figuring out ways to navigate around the Gibdos without getting attacked. Finally, let's start talking about the Gibdos. I immediately began working on my new version of the Gibdos and had a lot of difficulty. For one, the Gibdo has a very slow agile movement. Almost looks like they're reaching with every step. I built a blocky representation of the body and began working on its walking animation. After a few days, I finally got the animation down. It's not a direct copy. In fact, there's a couple things I added in. Now, the Gibdo does a small limp with every step to sort of show how much it struggles to balance being a mummified bag of bones and flesh. Lastly, I made it to where instead of it always looking down, it now looks up with every step, to make sure it can still see where you're at. Along with its struggle to walk, the Gibdo now grimly looks at you with determination. After this, I made my best attempts to create an actual body for the Gibdo, and needless to say, there was a lot of improvement needed. After the body was made, I had to design a texture. My first idea was to just have these black rings around it. Maybe everyone would just assume it's tape, but once I saw it in action I realized how dumb this idea was. Next I began painting a new texture on it with Blender's texture paint tool. While this did make the Gibdo look a lot more polished, it also looked messy, which I thought was cool, but in the end my efforts were short-lived because Blender couldn't locate the textures I had saved for the Gibdo, and I lost all my progress on that. All I have left now is this one screenshot of the progress. So I gave up for a couple weeks. I lost motivation to make videos and I kept coming back to the Gibdo project, only to remember why I gave up on the idea. But the one day I came back to it and completely redesigned everything. I gave it a new body, worked on the walk cycle some more, reshaped the head, and finally I ended up just drawing my own textures in Microsoft Paint, and it all came together beautifully. After this, I immediately spent the next couple of weeks redesigning Kakariko Village with my own textures, and finally put together a concept piece for the first Gibdo encounter. Keep in mind, this environment is nowhere close to finished, and a lot of things are going to be added to the Gibdo's walk so it looks more realistic. But here it is. This is the new version of the Gibdos that will be featured in this fan-made Zelda game, and while the former version is scarier, this one feels like it fits the feeling I'm trying to go for. I'm going to be finishing up on Kakariko Village, and my next video will be a full tour of the new and improved Kakariko Village that I've been trying to create. Thank you for taking your time to look into this project, and I'm looking forward to any ideas that some of you might have for me. Here in a little bit, I'm going to be gone for about 2 weeks for some training for my job, so it's going to be a little bit before y'all hear back from me. But in the meantime, take it easy.